FF7 has officially turned 20 today, and considering just how damn influential this game is today, I feel we should look back at what the game did right and see what we can dig about this game from 1997. So let's cut the bullshit and jump right into this game. Oh hey, that's just like how the actual game does it. I love this opening so much. It's such a perfect blend of narrative progression and having a tutorial that's ingrained into the gameplay. Through the start of the game, you're immediately introduced to all of the characters, what their motivations are, and what exactly is going on. I love how it never pauses and takes a break. This game throws action right in your face with no breaks whatsoever, and it all leads up to a great climactic boss fight. I should also mention that this is the first boss fight, and it's impeccably designed. It introduces the player to how most of the boss fights throughout the game will work. There's always some sort of puzzle, gimmick, or weakness to every boss in FF7, and this one has it so if you attack the boss while the tail is up, you'll get punished for doing so with this incredibly powerful special attack. You need to think about what you're doing in FF7 in order to be successful within this game. After this exciting first boss fight, then the game commences to go into an extremely calm and relaxing train ride, where the game starts in full. FF7 honestly is one of the best intros in gaming, so I couldn't exactly skip over it. But let's get into the nitty gritty now. The great thing about FF7 is the fact that the combat is so engaging right from the get-go. It's fairly standard turn-based combat, but it does have a few bells and whistles added to differentiate it from the crowd. The main gimmick with this game is a materia system, which is both simultaneously in-depth and simple to learn. If you know anything about me, then you'll know that I went as in-depth as possible with the system because JRPG. The materia at its most basic understanding works like this. The function of the materia is that it gives you abilities to do in combat outside of the 5 basic functions you're given. This includes summoning, status buffs, stealing enemy moves so that you can use them yourself, magic, adding more commands to your character, the works. You have these empty slots on every character's weapon and armor that allow you to equip materia. Every character can equip any materia they want, but be careful because while the materia can give you those positive effects mentioned above, it also comes with the complication that it can change your stats in a negative way as well. Materia thankfully never does any permanent stat changes, so experiment to your heart's content. I should also mention that on the materia and armor equip screen, you can see an indicator of the growth style of your materia, which comes in a variety of normal, double, triple, and none. During battles, you'll receive an amount of AP which can level up your materia. Normal means you will receive the base amount of AP that it indicates on the screen. Likewise, double and triple materia can double and triple the amount respectively, and none negates AP entirely. An extremely interesting thing that you can do with the materia is the genius combo system that Squaresoft incorporated with it. There are certain types of equipment that have combined materia slots that sort of look like this. If you have a particular summon, command, or magic materia, then they can combine with support materia, and it can give you a combo effect. Combos basically combine the effects of both materia. A personal favorite of mine, for example, is the final attack combined with Knights of the Round. It will perform the most powerful summon in the game as a last resort during battle, which makes for some very intense comebacks when you're losing a battle, as it turns the tide in your favor generally. The great thing about materia, and the game in general though, is that if you want to be the best character that you can possibly be, then you can grind yourself up and your materia to your heart's content. However, if you simply just want to beat the game, very minimal if any grinding is necessary. A fault that which a lot of JRPGs even today have a struggle figuring out. The game's challenge is very balanced, which is something I can appreciate. It's not impossible to finish this game doing as little combat as possible, though it still will be much more difficult if you don't engage in as much combat as possible. Another aspect of the game that I really enjoy is the minigames, mainly because there's like 3 billion of them, because Squaresoft was allergic to not having any variety. The minigames don't feel too out of place within the game, Some of them, such as the snowboarding and motorbike racing, can be exhilarating and very fun to participate in, whereas others like chocobo racing can be intense and hard to predict the outcome of. Considering the lack of great minigames we'd be getting from the future titles in the series, I'm amazed Square Enix nailed these so well in their first 3D Final Fantasy. There is one thing that I don't like about the gameplay though, and that would be the bullshit. Why is there platforming in my Final Fantasy game? Okay, it's not really platforming, it's more like trying to move Cloud to weird designated jump areas, and making him jump to some sort of other area, but it's so damn finicky. Since this game uses pre-rendered graphics, it can be difficult to discern where exactly you're supposed to jump off of in a particular area. And the less I say about the weird wire pendulum part where you have to predict which tangent Cloud has to jump on in order to attach himself to the wire, the better. Another annoying point in the game is this snow blizzard portion, where you have to leave a bunch of markers in order to figure out how to get to the next area. The idea here is to leave a bunch of markers in order to tell where you're going, but my issue is that it's incredibly easy to get stuck on in this point, especially if you were like me a few weeks ago when I decided to pick up the PlayStation 4 version of the game, having not played the game in ages. Sure, you can place the markers down to tell where you've been going, but if you can't figure out how to get to the next area, you're sent back to the start of the puzzle. It's really dumb considering this place is entirely a blizzard snowstorm, with no indication of where the endpoint of the current area is. Those are only 2 points of the game though, and they don't really detract from an otherwise fantastic experience. You know what I really enjoy about this game though, and yes, even still to this day? The graphics. What? How can you enjoy these graphics? They're so ugly and polygonal. They look nothing like the glorious graphics of today. Well, if you shut up for 1 second, I can explain. Yes, this game does not look as realistic as FF15, and hell, even its other 2 PlayStation 1 contemporaries. But that doesn't matter to me. You know what this game's graphics contain for me, and why they look good to me even today? Charm. That's something your precious FF15 can never have with its leather jacket pretty boys. Every single character design in this game looks unique and instantly memorable. You got Cloud with his iconic purple outfit and yellow hair. You know, I talk a lot about contrasting colors now that I realize it. Barrett with his Mr. T look going on, Tifa and her massive T-fuzz, Sephiroth and his long white hair and massive sword, even simplistic designs like Aerith/Aeris and her stylish pink dress look great. Sure, a lot of people may claim that these character designs are too 90s, but to me personally, good character designs doesn't correlate with timeless character designs. Quite the opposite actually. It's because FF7's character designs look so distinctly 90s and of their era that they work so well. It's sort of like a time capsule for anyone who wants to experience what a good character design was for 1997. And it can bring a large sense of nostalgia for anyone who played this game back in 1997. You know what has aged well in Final Fantasy VII after all these years? The backgrounds. Sure, as mentioned before, they can be hard to navigate, but that doesn't really detract from the main experience of them. Much like the early Fallout games, and well, most games that use pre-rendered backgrounds, the style of them inherently feels so unique to the medium of video games that it makes it feel special in the only way gaming can. If you had the style of pre-rendered backgrounds that Final Fantasy VII uses in, say, an animated series, it could work, but it would feel incredibly jarring and weird, even during the time period FF7 was released in. The closest examples I can think to prove this statement is the anime series Beast Wars, which actually looks worse than Final Fantasy VII, and might have worse looking pre-rendered backgrounds, so never mind. Another great thing about these pre-rendered backgrounds is that every asset of these backgrounds never feels like it's used more than once. I know this seems like a redundant point, but I really find it special that every character and bookshelf in this game feels like its own unique asset, and no assets were copied and pasted within the game. This is something I don't think any 3D game does today, let alone any 3D game on the PlayStation 1 does. It's very easy, for example, to make a forest that's just a bunch of copy-pasted trees, but if the forests in FF7 are copy-pasted trees, I sure couldn't tell. It's the attention to detail that makes FF7's graphics such a marvel even today. One thing I especially love about this game though, is the way the game conveys emotion through the character models. There's two kinds of character models in the game, the map character models and the battle character models. The battle character models are definitely much more fleshed out and detailed, so that they can convey emotion in a much more traditional way, even though most of the story bits are conveyed through the map character models. Which is what I want to get into! Since the map character models lack so much detail, and to be quite frank here, look like a bunch of Legos, they can't really convey their emotion in a traditional way. The genius way that they decided to mask this is to add expressive body language. If a character is sad, they sag over their entire body. If a character is angry, they'll shake their fist. If a character is happy, they jump up and down. It's sort of like the method of expression Squaresoft used in their entirely pre-rendered game Super Mario RPG, where, since Mario couldn't talk, he would occasionally break into a game of charades to communicate with the other characters in the game. It's brilliant, and I love it! One of the best ways to demonstrate the expressive emotion is the Don Cornello quest. In this quest, in order to infiltrate the Don Cornello mansion, Cloud must dress up as a girl. You can clearly tell by the lack of text boxes and general lack of movement that Cloud is kind of reluctant to even try to participate in this quest, but he goes along with it because it seems to make Aeris happy. After all is said and done, you dress up as a girl and get ready to infiltrate the mansion. There is some, let's just say, weird happenstances that happen within the mansion that I don't really want to talk about, so let's ignore those and jump straight into the scene where Dawn is ready to shag the cross-dressing Cloud. The two girls then jump into the fray after the unnerving foreplay, and Cloud reveals that he's not actually a girl. Then they ask for information, and they don't receive that information, they're gonna rip off his penis. I like how everyone puts one knee on the bed and their elbow up to their knee to intimidate him more. Best part about FF7, penis removal quest. Speaking of quests, the story and plot. One thing that I have to mention about the writing, I fucking love the lack of exposition. Most of the story is conveyed through the actions of the characters and the events that happen around them. When they need to insert some lore into the plot, this game is a way of telling you the lore in a manner in which you never feel the characters are just giving you an information dump. The character writing in this game is absolutely brilliant. No person feels as if they ever say something that they wouldn't say unless it's a fitting moment to break character. I'm reluctant to talk about the lore itself, since due to the explosion of popularity this game has received, it's become a cultural milestone. Why is that a problem? Much like most cultural milestones, the game has a ridiculous amount of lore that makes my brain explode. But I will say that if you're the type of person to find ridiculous amounts of lore interesting, then you definitely won't be disappointed by this game, that's for certain. The plot itself has so much going on, and it never feels like this game had ever run out of ideas to dish out of the story during development. There's so many great twists and turns strewn throughout the game that it keeps you really engaged throughout the whole thing. The basic gist of the plot is that you have to stop a spell named Meteor from crashing into the planet and killing everyone. Sephiroth is sort of the main bad guy, but not really. Cloud is the good guy, but he's not actually really, or Cloud is at least not his true self. Aeris dies at some point. I realize this is a poor description because I want everyone to play the game, and I'm being vague on purpose. But it's a great story, trust me on this one. Every character in this game has an interesting backstory to offer, and it really gives you an understanding of why every character acts the way they act. Some backstories are tragic, others are just simply interesting. Great writing all around. My only real complaint with the writing is how the game ends. I'll just briefly say that it ended on an unsatisfying note. The journey is more important than the destination for me anyways though, so I don't really think that matters in the long run. The last thing I want to touch up upon is the fantastic music that this game has. Now you may notice something peculiar. This game doesn't have any CD quality music. What's up with that? Well, I'll tell you what's up with that. Nobuo Uematsu was originally going to use CD quality music for the game, but found that the load times needed for Final Fantasy VII in order to have that music were way too damn long. What a great guy, opting out for lesser quality instruments in order to keep the gameplay high quality. The music, unsurprisingly, because it had a talented composer behind it, didn't take any sort of hit from this decision. All of it sounds memorable, fantastic, and it fits every single scene in the game. I don't think there's a single track in this game that I don't like, which is incredibly rare for me personally. Uematsu's approach to composing this soundtrack was to make it sound like a film score, and I most certainly think he succeeded, as this score sounds just as grand as Star Wars, for example. And let's not kid ourselves, just as iconic. So many people around the world can recognize One Winged Angel the second they hear it, and the main theme still brings a tear to my eye and to many fans' eyes to this day. FF7 might have its upsides and its downsides, but it's aged so well and is such an enjoyable experience that I personally think it's like the classic Star Wars trilogy. It will never not be relevant to play, and yes, I think even after the FF7 remake, it'll still be worth playing. I love FF7, and I wouldn't let anyone's complaints dismay me. And it ain't the nostalgia talking, considering I just recently played this for the majority of this month in fact. Goodbye everyone. And no matter what happens, Viva Final Fantasy VII. The battle character. The That makes no sense. What the fuck? You can clearly tell by the lack of tech Then they ask for information, and then they don't receive that information. They're gonna rip off his penis! I like how everyone puts one... Best part about FF7, penis quest removal. The plot itself has so much going on, and it never feels like this game had to ever run out of ideas. The music, unsurprisingly, because it had a lack of... Uematsu's